Alright, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to the next episode. We're actually going to be skipping over to Belgium. Unfortunately, my Hungary recording audio output was set to mono instead of stereo. I don't know when or how I changed it over, but it had been a few days since I recorded between Silverstone and Hungary. So we're going to go ahead and jump into Belgium. Just wanted to let you guys know that last time around there in Hungary, we qualified in the top 5. We finished the sprint race in P4, and then we finished the main race in P1 with a fight against Victor Martins and Theo Porcher, like we had been in the last few races, as we're still looking to try to defend that Constructors' Championship. So let's go ahead and get right to qualifying here in Belgium. Alright, so here we are in qualifying here in Spa. As you guys saw at the beginning of the video, our stats were there on the bottom of the screen, so we're not going to show them on our card. Coming across the line for DRS, it's going to be a P11, so 2:02.510 is going to be our first run. Moving on to our final run, we're down about 2.5 tenths or so, trying to hit this corner. Not really great. We're back in P22. And we lost about a half second coming out of that corner, so it's going to be a back of the grid start.
Goodbye for now then, but we really are just getting started. Make sure you join us again for Lights Out tomorrow. So today, the sprint race, no pit stops, just full on pace. It's all about speed, daring, and sheer driving skill. What, I wonder, is in store for us today? So here we are again, a whopping 3.5 miles of track here at Spa, featuring long straights, some seriously fast corners, and some massive elevation changes. This is a track that routinely delivers high-quality racing, and we'll be hoping to see just that from our young F2 drivers today. And we welcome you to the Formula 2 commentary box. I'm Alex Jakes. Alongside me for this one is Mr. Alex Brundle. And we've got this format in Formula 2, Alex, where the top 10, they get reversed from qualifying to form our grid. So the mid-order in qualifying now become contenders for the win.
Try to leave reverse in the pit lane if you possibly can. You do not want to be going backwards from the front row of the grid. This is the moment where some drivers are able to snatch points they won't be able to later on.
I know we didn't have a great qualifying run. There's plenty of room for improvement throughout the rest of the weekend.
Alright, so jumping right into the sprint race, 9 laps, starting in P22. Our 5 red lights are on. And we are off to a late start. You saw Hauger get a way better launch. And Nissani next to us. Off to a rough start like we are, as we're taking our time coming into the first quarter. 2 sets of 3 wide. That is Vesti, Beauchamp, and Crawford ahead. The first 3 side by side. You could see them up there. And hoping that they weren't going to go 3 wide into Eau Rouge, but a little bit of a 2 wide action going on there as we're coming up the hill. Pretty good to start out the race. We're up in P21. Coming through this first DRS section out of the start-finish sign, start-finish straight, and looking to possibly try to make a move on Dennis Hauger, and some latency issues going on. I'm going to try to fix those between this episode and the next, so I do apologize about that. You guys will be seeing that a bunch this episode, as we look to try to make a move on Dennis Hauger here in P20. Not quite where we want to take over a position, but we're gonna definitely see what we can do through Sector 2 and Sector 3. Sector 2 has not been our strong suit on this track throughout the last few years, and we're gonna try and take the most of it as best as we can. So 3/10 back behind Hauger, about 3/4 of the way through the lap. We're coming down to the end of Sector 2, start of Sector 3, I believe. Making that move on the outside of Hauger, holding our line. He has the inside line, he has to give way. We're gonna have the momentum. We're gonna push in front of Hauger for P20 by the time we get through to Sector 3. And you can just see that gap building between myself and Vesti up there in P19, so we're not gonna have too much fun in the high-speed sections of this track, as we close the gap a little bit by not braking, moving up to the inside of Vesti here, second to last corner, as we're still fighting for P19. We have a decent launch to close that gap, and we're gonna go ahead and try to brake late here for P19. Inside of Vesti, almost coming into the back of Beauchamp, very close to slamming into the back of his vehicle. It's P19 as we start lap 2 of 9, and we're looking to make a move on Beauchamp and possibly Crawford if we can. That's gonna have to wait till later. And when I say later, it's the end of lap 3, so about almost 2 entire laps. We made our way ahead of Beauchamp, I believe. We did off camera, and then we're making a move on Crawford and Static. I don't quite remember. It's been a long few nights trying to troubleshoot my audio and video and stuff like that. So moving up to P16, the end of lap 3 to start of lap 4, and we're practically going to be able to hold on to this position for the rest of the race. You can see the gap is 2.2 coming around the first corner between myself and my teammate Cordial. So that's going to be a P16 finish for the sprint race.
Clement Novalak takes the checkered flag to win.
Well, whether you love or hate sprints in Formula 1, they definitely deliver. In Formula 2, lovely stuff. Great racing.
Our drivers are making their way out for the podium celebrations, and it's going to be Trident picking up the winner's trophy. Congratulations to the entire team for coming out on top in that amazing race. After all this drama, you'll be mad not to join us for the next race. We hope to see you then. Take care. It's Saturday, and that means we're preparing for today's Formula 2 event here in Spa. As the cars are being prepared, let's join them trackside for the start of what promises to be a terrific race. So here we are again, a whopping 3.5 miles of track here at Spa, featuring long straights, some seriously fast corners, and some massive elevation changes. This is a track that routinely delivers high-quality racing, and we'll be hoping to see just that from our young F2 drivers today. With that then, let's run through the grid order. Ollie Behrman lines up on pole position, and starting alongside in P2 is Teo Porcher. Looking down the rest of the grid, we have Deruvala, Martins, Juan Manuel Correa, Benavides, Fittipaldi, Maloney, Miney, Clement Novalak, Awasa, Leclerc, Roman Stanek, Amaury Cordial, and for sure, Beauchamp, Hadjar, Frederick Vesti, Crawford, Nissani, Hauger, and Johnson. And with preparations almost complete, let's head down to the track. It is the Formula 2 race. It is time to introduce you to Alex Brundle. I'm Alex Jakes, and we've got changeable weather out there today. That's making for some nervous team personnel down in the paddock, down in the pit lane.
Well, uncertainty is what strategy's all about, but it absolves the teams from the responsibility of running both compounds of tyre. They might have to use that wet tyre, of course, and then the question is, where do those crossovers lie between the wet and dry conditions?
That was some decent progress throughout the sprint. We know what we have to do as a team for today's race. So just do your thing out there and bring home some more points if you can.
The formation lap gets underway for this, the Formula 2 race, and every driver will be looking to settle in for the race ahead, making sure the car is ready for battle once the lights go out.
Alright, so here we are moving up to our grid slot, final grid slot of the formation lap. And the shortest time for waiting for our 5 red lights. So we're going to be 5 red lights are on, side by side with Hauger. No position change for anyone back between P11 and P22. We're off to a decent start. Hauger really relying on that toe on Crawford to try to make a move on the inside. Nobody going 3 wide this time around compared to the sprint. We're going to try to go to the outside. A little bit of contact on Crawford. Wasn't intentional. I tried to get around. I had to react accordingly. And so we're making our way up through Eau Rouge. And a lot more grip on these soft tires compared to the mediums from the sprint race. So a lot more control coming up the hill. We could go flat out in this F2 car. I believe that is fitted Victor Martins from the front. If not, it was our teammate Cornel, which I don't believe it was. A little bit more latency issue, like I said earlier during the sprint, as we're side by side with Crawford, moving up into P21, coming through to start Sector 2 down the hill, holding our position as best as we can. Very bad instance of the stuttering. Like I said, we'll just have to bear with it for the rest of this episode, and hopefully it'll be fixed by the time the next episode is out later in the week. So, P21 coming through Sector 2, as we're looking to try to make a move on Hauger yet again, and hoping for a better position finish than at P16. Side by side with Hauger, giving him plenty of space to try to fight. A break late here on this right-hander, kind of push him wide. He's gonna have to back out. So we're behind Nissani by 3/10, and we're close enough to try to close the gap. So we did lower the front wing a little bit for this feature race. We're gonna make a move on Nissani into P19 and let off the gas a little bit because we were in the tow. A little bit dangerous for us. We're gonna try to think about making a move on Vessi, not quite yet, and almost lost the car, braking late, as that's basically lap 1, still behind Vessi. We're gonna try to make a move on the inside, brake late, not too late to lock up and smash into the back of the Hadjar. That should be P18 by the start of lap 2. And as long as we can stay behind Hadjar, at least 3/10 or so through Eau Rouge, we can gain another position here. So we see that we hit the brakes, or let off the brakes momentarily, and not to really brag about it or not. But by the end of lap 2, this zone where everybody brakes, we're gonna take advantage of that and try to make a move on Hajar for P17. So we're going to try to hold the outside line, inside line of this next turn, and there's the stuttering again. Very horrible camera angles and moments for that stuttering to happen. I tried to get better angles yourself. Lap 3, the end of lap 3, P17 behind Beauchamp. And it's that left-hander right there that they hit the brakes, and it's just how the AI is. So we close that gap, make that position up into P16. We're practically back where we were when we ended the sprint race. So we're going to be behind our teammate Cordial. Claire there in P14. Versor, Stanek, Novalak are between us and P10 of Maloney. And then that's Awasa in P9 before the points finishers, provisional points finishers as of right now. As we're looking to make a move on our teammate Cordial, possibly into turn 1. He has DRS, we have DRS, and that's kind of what we were trying to do. We're trying to move the inside line, have our teammate unfortunately panic and lock up, so we take that position up into P15 as we start lap 5. So Eau Rouge flat out. Next up is Leclerc, and we're gonna finally catch up to him later on towards the end of lap 6 actually, so almost 2 complete laps before we're able to catch up to Leclerc. You can see that gap is 1.2 between himself and Versor. As we're gonna brake late into the second to last corner, so very strong move. I wasn't sure if he was gonna go into the if he was wanting to go into the pits. I don't know if I blocked him going into the pits, but it's gonna be an early pit stop for us. We're not gonna go too early. We're gonna go with everybody else. Lap 6, from the softs to mediums, and it's gonna be an okay stop, and it's gonna be an actually good launch compared to the last few races that we've had. So pretty good pit stop. Now we're just hoping that our strategy pays off and see where we end up at the end of this lap. On lap 7. So we're coming out of the pits and getting up to speed. We round out the end of this lap, coming up to the pit window. You can see all the position changes happening. We're still back in P16. Versor is close behind Maloney there. Stanek ahead, and this is the moment of truth to see where we end up. So Porcher, Behrman, Miney, Martins, so ART is up there fighting for positions, coming out of the pits, looking for some decent points. We're up into P12. We pass Novalak up into P10, and Benavides there. As Benavides is coming out of the pits, he's back down to P13. That's going to be Fittipaldi and Stanek ahead of us as we're coming out of Eau Rouge. And we're in a pretty good position as we're in the latter half of the race. So we're going to go ahead and go to the pit box, or the commentator's box, for what they have to say about today's race.
All right. We're getting ever so closer to the end of the F2 season as we are here in Spa. It's been quite the race weekend for these F2 drivers, as Johnson is still looking to secure the Drivers' Championship after an upsetting qualifying. Then there's the fight between ART and Virtuosi for the Constructors' title.
The championship fights that are going on are really exciting to watch. Johnson is hoping to make some much-needed progress this weekend in order to hopefully secure that Drivers' Championship. With the result of the sprint and the current positions of the ART drivers, it looks like they will be taking the lead of the constructor standings if Johnson is unable to work his way up to a podium spot by the end of the race.
Johnson's qualifying was quite unfortunate. It's not the first time his performance in qualifying has been subpar, yet he has certainly demonstrated impressive pace this weekend. The pit strategy ultimately proved successful, propelling Johnson into the top 10 and reviving his championship contention, although he likely aspires to be further up the field.
Recently, several drivers have shown improvement climbing up the ranks in the last few races. Spa especially exemplifies the chance to score points. Being the longest lap on the calendar, any error can be costly, potentially resulting in the loss of multiple positions. The season still has a long way to go, and it presents an opportunity for drivers to enhance their performance, to either secure their spots with their current teams or to advance to F1 or other racing series. Following the tyre testing at Silverstone, it's been said that Johnson will most likely get promoted to F1 for the 2024 season.
It would be thrilling to have a second American on the F1 grid in today's version of the sport. I can't recall if there was ever a time when 2 Americans were on the grid.
We will just have to take a deep dive into the F1 archives at a later time. Johnson is putting up a valiant fight against the drivers that stand before him, and a chance at points. You have the 2 drivers ahead fighting for P7 as we're only a few laps away from the checkered flag here in Spa.
Johnson has had trouble in Sector 2 this weekend, so he will have to rely on braking early and hitting the throttle out of the long corners if he wants to close those gaps. We've seen that he, yet again, is at a disadvantage on the straights with a preferred higher wing setup. I don't see Johnson complaining much about the way he has his car set up. He may lose that time on the straights, but he has that advantage over most drivers in the corners, which is what gives him the motivation to make those daring moves before they can pull away from him.
Well, we're going to leave it off here as we're watching this fight between Johnson and Stanek for that last points position.
And we were able to momentarily make that position up against Stanek into P8 throughout the end of that lap. Lap 10 now. Stanek is still about a half second behind, and these medium tires are pretty much at the point where you have to take care of these tires as best as you can. Coming out of Eau Rouge, you can see the gap between myself and Stanek. 6 tenths, 5 tenths, 4 tenths, and it's just closing and closing and closing. That's how bad it is for us with our setup, that we lose so much time on the straight. We're back into P9, still waiting to see what we can do against Stanek, as he has a DNF. He tried to make that position up and he gets an engine failure, so that's P8 for us. Fittipaldi files in behind us into P9. That's going to be very unfortunate for Stanek as we make our way down the hill through Sector 2. First DNF of the feature race. I don't believe we had one for the sprint. There's Fittipaldi there now. Lap 11. As you can see, that gap is closing so much faster. We're losing so much speed on this straight with our setup compared to DRS and the toe. But it's just, we have to deal with it, and we are dealing with it. Back in P9 now. Fittipaldi ahead. 2.6 is the gap between P8 and P7. We have to wait to make another move. The end of this lap actually is when we're able to make a dive bomb to the inside. Not quite. We're gonna wait. Make sure to actually hit the brakes instead of dive bombing the inside. So we're gonna hold our line behind Fittipaldi. We're gonna try to make a move on the outside of turn 1. We're gonna brake late. So we give him the inside. We give him space. We get the grip on the exit of turn 1. We take up P8, and that's going to be good enough for P8 for the end of this race.
He's made it all the way to the top step of the podium. Ollie Behrman takes the checkered flag.
Have you seen one quite as dominant as that, Jakesy? I'm not sure I have. They led every single lap of that one, lights to flag.
As we look back on a thrilling race here today, we can now see the drivers take their places on the podium. It's a familiar sight by now, as it's another successful F2 win for Prema. It was great having you with us for this weekend. I hope you enjoyed it as much as we did. We'll see you when Formula 2 returns.